Every time an archaeological artifact is discovered, it is an opportunity to learn from the past. The problem is that we don't always understand the lessons. There are so many gaps in our knowledge about the people who lived before that it is sometimes difficult to interpret the things they left behind for us to find. All we can do is make our best guesses with the information available. So let's do it. Number 1. We know that the ancient inhabitants of Scotland were called the Picts, but that is almost all we know about them. Almost everything we think we know about this breed comes from biased Roman records, which makes our next discovery even more important. It is a carved and engraved Pictish stone that was found near the likely site of an ancient battle that led to the founding of the Scotland we know today. To be more specific, the discovery was made in a field in Aberlemno, near Forfar. The markings on its surface have been interpreted as representations of scenes from the Battle of Nectansmere, which occurred in the 7th century. The battle saw the Pictish king Breda mac Billy defeat Ecgfrith, king of the Anglo-Saxons. The defeat prevented the Anglo-Saxons from advancing further north and provided enough space and time for Scotland to form into the territory the Anglo-Saxons attempted to claim. The Picts had no written language and left virtually no historical records, making this stone as rare as it gets. Number 2. We have an Egyptian discovery for you. This is the remarkable discovery of a series of administrative buildings and silos at Kom on the banks of the Nile River. In ancient Egyptian times, this part of the country was known as Nut, a name that translates as the City of Gold. Many of the newly discovered buildings and rooms can be dated to the First Intermediate Period, which began in 2180 BC. And lasted until 2050 BC. The 20 silos on the site appear to have been used to store grain. The name, City of Gold, comes from the fact that this place was once a vital center of commercial activity in ancient Egypt, but during its boom years it was also important as a center of agriculture. However, people who bought their grain at Nut may have received more than they'd bargained for, as archaeologists have found rat bones and fossilized rat droppings inside the silos, indicating that rodent infestation was a problem. Serious. The money made in Nut paid for the construction of the Kom temple, which is dedicated to the crocodile god Sobek and is one of the most notable structures in the area. Number 3. We're looking at old and new discoveries in this video. So here's one that comes from 1867. It's the Hejnsgavel dagger, which was found on the Danish island of Funen. Experts consider it the best extant example of a fishtail-shaped flint dagger, and say it comes from the end of the Norse Stone Age, which would make it around 3,800 years old. In Denmark, the Hejnsgavel dagger is considered a national cultural icon, so much so that it appears on the country's 100-crown banknote. The description of the artifact as a fishtail dagger comes from the shape of its hilt, although it could also be argued that the shape of the blade also resembles a fish. Its design is believed to have been based on bronze daggers made in other parts of Europe. Some of these daggers found their way to Denmark, and although the ancient Danes were unable to replicate them, they were able to make something similar from local flint. Similar daggers continued to be made well into the Bronze Age in the region, so it was a design that endured for several centuries. Number 4. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs often married their sisters or half-sisters, which may seem strange in our time. However, they had special reasons for doing so. One of the main reasons was to keep his royal lineage pure and ensure that the throne passed to his family without problems. They also believed that marrying close relatives had important religious significance. Pharaohs were considered gods on earth, and marrying relatives reflected the union of gods in ancient stories. Furthermore, these marriages helped build political alliances. They could unite different family groups and regions through marriage ties. Although it may seem strange to us today, At the time, it made sense to them because of their beliefs and how they viewed royalty and religion. Ancient customs were often different from our own, and these family unions were an important part of the lives of the pharaohs and ancient Egyptian society. Number 5. The sinking of the Titanic stands out as one of the most emblematic disasters in history. New images of the 1912 shipwreck revealed the Titanic in critical condition, dissolving under the effects of salt water, currents, and bacteria. Explorer Victor Vescovo and his team, on an expedition of 5 dives to 12,000 feet over 8 days, used a rugged submersible to capture images for an upcoming National Geographic documentary. Although it was not the first time they found the remains, they were surprised by the great deterioration that had occurred in the last decade. Iconic elements, such as the valve from the famous scene in the 1997 film, were unrecognizable and vanishing into the ocean. The Titanic is expected to completely deteriorate in the coming decades. In a gesture of respect, the crew laid a wreath and held a brief ceremony in memory of those who lost their lives more than a century ago. Number 6. Egyptian medicine demonstrated a remarkable degree of advance for its time and has left records in ancient papyri dating back at least 5,000 years. These papyri provide valuable information about diseases, diagnoses, and remedies. Although in its beginnings, Egyptian medicine was based on spells and religious magic, doctors were already performing medical and surgical procedures. Among the most notable papyri are the Berlin Papyrus, the Iversi Papyrus, and the Com Papyrus, which focus on general pathology, gynecology, and pediatrics. The Edwin Smith Papyrus describes cases of trauma and reflects Egyptian knowledge of human organs, including blood vessels and the heart. Until the Persian invasion in 525 BC, Egyptian medical practices remained largely constant. They performed simple, non-invasive surgical procedures. They discovered the medicinal properties of local and foreign plants, offering various recipes in their papyri to treat health problems. For example, the Papyrus of Iversi provides more than 800 remedies, including topical ointments, bandages, and oral medications. The Egyptians also used metallic surgical tools, discovered in Karl's tomb, made of bronze. Surgery was common to treat physical injuries. They developed a triage system that categorized injuries into treatable, questionable, and untreatable. Among the tools used were saws, spoons, tongs, knives, drills, forceps, and more. Circumcision was a common practice, and they used prostheses such as artificial toes, eyes, and tongues. They possessed sound surgical knowledge of mummification and religious autopsy, giving them a proper understanding of human morphology. They even managed to correctly deduce the function of some organs. They understood that blood carried oxygen and removed carbon dioxide, and they were aware of the pulse and its relationship to the heart. They theorized about channels that carried air, blood, and water through the body, developing methods to treat diseases using laxatives that unblock these channels. The Ivers Papyrus mentions the enema as a method of administering medications in general. Some Egyptian medical practices, especially in the field of surgery, were effective, as described in the Edwin Papyrus. Ancient Egyptian doctors promoted hygiene and a healthy diet as preventative measures against disease. Furthermore, they possessed extensive medical knowledge that has baffled modern scientists. Number 7. A vaguely defined region in the Atlantic Ocean, it has been shrouded in mystery for decades, gaining notoriety for the mysterious disappearance of numerous ships and planes. Under the waves of the Bermuda Triangle, a mysterious seabed is hidden with underwater plains, spectacular falls, and submerged mountain chains, generating various enigmas. One intriguing mystery involves underwater methane hydrates, possibly causing massive bubbles that could sink ships, although this theory has yet to be proven as the definitive cause of the disappearances in the area. The Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean, also lies beneath the waters of the Triangle, offering unexplored terrain for scientific research. The deep sea of the Bermuda Triangle harbors secrets to be discovered, which baffle scientists and explorers, adding more mystery to this famous enigma. Number 8. A long time ago, in ancient Egypt, there was something special called the Book of the Dead. It was not a normal book, but a kind of guide written on rolls of paper. These scrolls helped people who had died on their journey after life. When someone died, their body was carefully prepared for the journey. Next to it, one of these special scrolls was placed. These scrolls were like maps showing how to get to an important place where the soul was judged. If the soul passed the test, it could go to a beautiful place. If it didn't happen, something bad would happen to him. The Book of the Dead had magic words and tricks that helped the soul overcome problems along the way. It also told what things to offer and what words to say. There were even small statues that did the work for the soul. Each scroll was different and tailored to the person who had died. It was believed that these words and symbols would help the soul on its journey so that it could live forever in peace. These scrolls tell us about how the ancient Egyptians believed in life after death and finding eternity. Number 9. Submerged under the crystalline waters of the Italian Riviera, about 17 meters deep, lies the moving Christ of the Abysses, a bronze statue of Jesus Christ erected in 1954 and created by the Italian diver Delio Marante. This 2.5-meter sculpture is a moving tribute to Dario Gonzatti, a friend of Marante, who died tragically underwater. If it weren't for a diver who captured it, it would be hard to believe. With moving origins in their replica, there are now 2 identical monuments in honor of the Son of God. The first is off the coast of St. George in the southeastern Caribbean Sea, initially submerged before moving to the boardwalk. The second, a gift to the American Underwater Society, adorns the seafloor 25 feet deep near the Dry Rocks Coral Reef off the coast of Florida. Both replicas reflect the impact of Marante's vision, and the original statue is in Italy's National Diving Museum. Each version of the Christ of the Abyss serves as a moving tribute that transcends borders, offering comfort and reflection to those who explore the depths of the sea. Number 10. The ancient Egyptians weren't kidding when it came to having fresh breath. They used a pumice stone to pulverize the ashes of ox hooves and burnt eggshells into a powder. That powder was then applied to their teeth and gums to protect their mouths from hygiene problems, and was said to be quite effective for those purposes. At least as far as cleaning goes, in terms of overall health, it probably wasn't great as it actively caused the gums to bleed. Over time, they also used a combination of pepper, iris flowers, and rock salts. Interestingly, they are also believed to have been some of the first people to invent toothbrushes or chew sticks as they were called back then. They made these instruments from twigs, with one side serving as toothpicks and the other frayed at the end to function as bristles. Members of that civilization also developed their own type of breath mints from mixtures of boiled herbs and spices, such as frankincense or cinnamon mixed with honey to be chewed or sucked. Number 11. Underwater structures of Zakynthos. Initially found as remains of a lost Greek city near Zakynthos, recent research published in the Journal of Marine and Petroleum Geology revealed a more intriguing truth about these underwater structures. Contrary to the initial belief that the site was a sunken city destroyed by ancient tidal waves, it turns out to be a natural geological phenomenon dating back to the Pliocene era, approximately 5 million years ago. If it weren't for a diver who captured it, it would be hard to believe. The site, discovered by divers, was carefully examined by experts using advanced techniques such as X-rays and microscopy. Their findings revealed that the distinctive donut-shaped solid masses formed due to a subsurface fault that released gas. Although uncommon in seawater, these formations are more common in microbial sediments exposed by natural seafloor erosion. The research team concluded that this shallow water geological phenomenon is exceptionally rare and provides valuable information about the Earth's dynamic processes over millions of years. Number 12. Shipbuilding played a vital role in the Egyptian economy and culture. Using their understanding of aerodynamics, the Egyptians erected advanced ships equipped with adjustable sails and stern-mounted rudders. They were pioneers in the use of heavily armed ships, from small papyrus rafts to imposing vessels capable of carrying heavy loads. A notable example is the Khufu ship, a well-preserved vessel that would continue sailing today. Although it was not until 2400 BC who managed to build ships capable of challenging the waves of the Mediterranean. During the Pyramid Age, Egyptian boats lacked keels, instead using ropes to prevent capsizing. Propelled by oars and tall sails, ships are recorded that ventured to Lebanon in search of precious wood. Around 1500 BC, the Egyptians mastered the construction of keels and internally reinforced hulls, giving rise to two types of ships: wide-hulled ships for transporting cargo and narrow galleys for war. On their sea voyages, the Egyptians were guided by sundials and constellations to determine their location. Some experts suggest that they also had knowledge of electricity, as underground chambers have been found beneath the Dendera temple that may have contained ancient light bulbs, as well as an object with striking resemblance to a light bulb. Although this topic continues to be debated among scholars, the possibility remains that the ancient Egyptians gave deeper scientific meaning to the images and texts they left behind. The Egyptians left an important legacy in astronomy, the accuracy of which is still relevant today. Although not considered an independent science in its time, Egyptian knowledge was deeply rooted in its religion and mythology. Number 13. The 7,000-year-old stone circles, located in Upper Egypt, are proof of their importance for religious life. The ancient Egyptians made significant contributions to astronomy. At first, they used astronomical texts to establish the dates of religious festivals. They also developed a system of constellations and captured star tables in tombs and temples. During the Greco-Roman period, Claudius Ptolemy stood out as one of the most prominent astronomers of the time. He catalogued more than 1,000 stars and described how to predict planetary behavior. The Egyptians noted that the flooding of the Nile coincided with the appearance of stars at the gate, using this observation to create a 365-day calendar. His knowledge of astronomy also influenced the orientation of sacred buildings and the fixing of New Year's Day. The Egyptians believed that their gods resided in the kingdom of Osiris, located in the constellation Orion. The three pyramids of Giza represent the stars of Orion's belt, while the Sphinx symbolizes the constellation Leo. Today, astronomers have discovered that the pyramid was designed to precisely point to the circumpolar stars in the northern sky. With their knowledge of astronomy, the ancient Egyptians discovered variable stars and accurately calculated the eclipse period before the Europeans. They developed tools such as the sundial, the hourglass, and the tick to measure time, dividing the day into hours. They may also have proposed the idea of a spherical Earth. They built temples aligned astronomically, with roofs designed for observing the stars and calculating the hours during the night. Although their star alignment was not completely precise, they were more advanced in astronomy than any other ancient civilization. Ancient technology discovered in Egypt bears striking similarities to that of the 21st century. We should not underestimate their civilization nor their progressive approach and vast knowledge.